Welcome to Money Hangout once again. Every week we talk about something which is very important thing for you or something which is a burning issue. Try and help you understand mutual funds better and try and answer your questions. This is brought to you by Birla Sun Life Mutual Fund and Value Research. Today we are going to talk about something which is very basic. A must-do list for investors. Before you invest, you need to really think about this and be careful about it, be meticulous about it, because our savings, our investments are going to outlive us. So it needs to be, you need to do the essential things before making this investment, and be very clear about these things. Everybody has a checklist. The airline pilots have a checklist. The doctors have a checklist, and these are important things. These are hygiene issues. They make sure that the intended goal of making an investment and what the eventual purpose of that will be achieved. And we spend a lot of time thinking about which is the right kind of fund, which is it the best fund, should we be making changes, but there is something more basic, which many a times creates a lot of heartburn. It creates a lot of difficulty for all your investments get stuck sometimes. So I'm going to talk about 5 things which every investor should worry about and should be very meticulous and careful about these things. One is that before you make an investment, you must ensure that you have nominee, and you can have nominees of for various investments. For different investment you can have different nominees. You can have as many nominees as you want, and you can also assign the proportion. So if there is an investment which is worth 10 lakh rupees and you want your investment to be the successors of these investment should get it in a certain proportion, you can well assign that somebody will get 30% of it, another person will get 30% of it, and the third person will get 40% of it. So you can predefine these nominations, and while making this investment you should be little careful about it and make sure that you have it. Today we find that there are a lot of investments which might be orphan investments which were made, and people who have lost track, and those investments are lying, and not having a nomination creates problem, because then you have to go about proving that you are the heir of that investment. You are the rightful successor of these investments, whosoever is the successor. So that's a problem. Preempt that. Digitize. Today it is possible to derive a lot of privileges, a lot of benefits if you are making an investment and you give your mail ID. All the registrars collate all your investments by a single mail ID. Of course you need to be careful about your PAN number and other things, because making a correction of all this becomes difficult. But I think being sure of a mail ID which you will retain for a long time in future, and you will continue to use it. Many a times we feel that you're working in a company, you give your company's mail ID and you have changed your job, and then that mail ID becomes inaccessible to you, and all the information might be coming there, and then you have to go. Of course there's a procedure of requesting, asking the registrars to change your mail ID, but then that is a physical procedure. You have to really sign a paper that this is your investment, these are your folios, this was your earlier mail ID, or there was no mail ID when you made the investment, and this is going to be your mail ID. But being careful about your mail ID, you will be able to get all your account statement at one place. This will help you. Even today there are features, there are facilities available from the registrars where, by giving your mail ID, and if it is consistent across all the investment that you have made across various fund companies, all your investments get centralized at one place. You get a single account statement on that mail ID. In fact, the NSDL, if you have a demat account, things get collated by the PAN number, but having a uniform mail ID. So be careful about your mail ID. And once you get your mail ID, you get a single account statement. Even Value Research will be very useful to you, because you can upload your single account statement, and you can track all your investments in Value Research Portfolio Manager. You don't even have to type your investments individually. Keep your contact details updated. This is very basic. but you will stop getting all the communication. So if you are meticulous about your mail ID, then I think most of the interaction, most of the communication happening from the fund companies through the registrars comes on mail ID. But despite that, any physical communication can come, so make sure that you have your address handy. Updating your bank account. Over course of our financial life, we have multiple bank accounts, and while making a investment, whatever bank account we specify, which is specifying a bank account is mandatory for making an investment in a mutual fund, and you get all your redemption proceeds or any interim payout there. So it's important that you do that. Keeping your contact details is very important, because today, nearly in the absence of these contact details, in the absence of the right address of these individuals, nearly 500 crore rupee is lying with mutual funds, which is unclaimed. The unclaimed redemption proceeds and dividends from mutual fund aggregates to 500 crore, which is a lot of money, and that is, that could be all of us, the money which has redeemed, or the dividend which was paid or attempted to be paid but was not delivered to the person. This is all a legacy, because it was all in from the past, because of late, for last 8-10 years, providing your bank statement, providing your bank account number is mandatory, and all these redemption proceeds and dividends straightway come to your bank account directly without any physical intervention. But earlier, when we used to get the dividend warrants and the redemption warrants, that money is still lying unclaimed, and that is 500 crores. So this is a lesson for you. Make sure that your bank account is updated. If you change your bank account, or if you close your bank account, you should immediately get this change affected in your account, in your investments. And try and keep it simple. Have a single bank account linked to these investments, so that things are streamlined and simplified, and you don't have to worry much about it. Make sure that you keep that bank account live for a lifetime. This will also simplify all your investments in future. You will reduce your paperwork substantially. Then comes, the important thing is, these investments, as they are going to outlive you, if you do it well, if you are listening to us, and if you are careful about it, and if you are disciplined and meticulous, you are very likely to have substantially more than what you will consume. And it should naturally reach the people. It should end up with being people if you are not around. So after you make sure that, of course, once you have made sure that your nominees are aware of it, but how will they access it if they are not aware of it? So inform the people whom you would like, make sure that your dependents, or whosoever be the beneficiary, they are aware of these investments, and at least be aware of it, so that if the need arises, they can access that. Because having made these investments, and which are, people may not be aware of it. Physical assets, people are aware that this is the house, this is the physical thing, this is the car, but this is something which will be invisible. So they being aware is extremely important, and explaining the relevant people about all the details about the scale of investment, or how to access it, or what is the objective, or the intended purpose. So just nomination won't help. They being aware is just as important. And then comes, make sure that you are keeping track of all the communication. Sometimes you get online, we develop a fatigue. We get a mail, and we just hit on the delete button if it is a cumbersome long legal document which is trying to explain you something. And because we get too many mails, we have this tendency only gaining strength. So don't hit the delete button the moment you get an official mail. Create a folder, or create a label in your Gmail account, so that all these information remain there. Sometimes they are important information. If a fund changes its mandate, or if a fund is actually has stopped taking money, or if some rules or some regulations or something has changed, you are being told, and then you should read it carefully. You should make sure that you are acting on it. You don't have to necessarily act on it, but being aware of it is just as important. Sometimes they actually throw a question, they prompt you to ask those questions to us if you think we could be of any help. So make sure that you are keeping a trail of all the mails that you get from this. So just to summarize, uh, you should be doing these 5 things irrespective of what investments you make, with what objective, with what risk tolerance. Have a nominee. Make sure that you are giving a consistent email ID. Having a mail ID will ensure that you have all your things which can be collated at one place. It can all be combined and synchronized. Keep your contact details and bank account updated at all times with all your investments. Otherwise, you will not be a quick beneficiary of anything, all the investments. Whenever you need the redemption, you will have to go through a whole procedure of updating these before you get your money back. Make sure that the people for whom these investments are, who should eventually get it if you are not around, they are aware of these investments, and keep your emails carefully.
Thanks, Dhiren. We have a number of questions lined up.
Yes.
In our first question, Mr. Agarwal asks how he can keep his regular and direct folios in one place. In short, how can he keep track of his investments?
It's absolutely not a problem. He can upload his portfolios at Value Research Online. Not only that, if he has the same email ID given to the registrar for his direct as well as regular plans, all his investments he can get a consolidated account statement for that, and he can upload these investments on our portfolio, and he can track them continually.
Next up, Vijaya asks why separate forms have to be filled for different mutual funds when KYC is already done. Why isn't there a common application form?
Ideally, it should be, and it has been attempted many times, but mutual fund companies have come around close to being a standard application form. And not only that, in fact, if you open an account at mutual fund utility, effectively the kind of information that you provide there, once you have set up your account, you have set up your nominees, you don't have to fill up all the information separately at all times. And the reason why you have to, whenever you make an investment in a mutual fund directly or through an intermediary, you have to provide this information because that is a legal requirement. Every fund company must be aware of your details, your address, the nominees, and these things can change for different investments. If you are making one investment, you can have one set of nominees. In another investment, you can have a different set of nominees. In another investment, you can have different second holder. So that actually makes these investments very, very separate. They are not, of course, you are the common link between these. So this is the legal requirement. But if you want to really simplify it by using any of the online features, and particularly the mutual fund utility, where all the information documents has to be, or investor information has to be filled only once, and after that, all you have to do is choose the fund, amount of money to be invested, and put the money. These are the only 3 variable information for a single investor. Rest of the information which you have to supply at one time, which is the KYC information, your bank details, your nominations, if they are standard across all your investments, it is very well done and it can be very easily done at mutual fund utility.
In our next question, Anurag says that he had planned to buy a WagonR for 6 lakh by 2018 by redeeming his mutual funds. However, his target has been met early. He asks if he should redeem now or should instead wait till next year to buy a 10 lakh car instead.
He is asking me something which I think he should decide, but I would first congratulate him if that he can buy his car early as his investments have done well, and take the money out, get the WagonR, enjoy it for a couple of years, and carry on with your investments whenever you, and look at it differently. Of course, I'm nobody to tell you that you should not buy a bigger car or you should not buy the smaller car. It entirely matters. It's an aspirational thing as well as a utility, but it is a consumption. You are spending your investments, and all the investment which will not be spent will earn and grow, and by now you very well understand they grow at a faster pace.
Thanks, Dhiren. Next up, Nikhil asks how long the expense ratio of a fund is fixed for, and if the difference between the regular and direct plan expense ratio remains the same.
Uh, Mutual fund expenses are fixed, and the direct plan and the regular plan, of course, ideally there should be a constant difference between between the both, between them, because the SEBI regulation says that the direct plan and the regular plan, all the expenses are same except that the sales commission which has to be paid in the regular plan, it should be reduced by as much. But what I find is that various fund companies, their regular expenses, and there is not a fixed formula. Many a times I find that the difference between the regular and the direct plan is sometimes 1.25%, and sometimes it is just as low as 35 basis points, 1/3 of a percentage. So that depends on the kind of expenses that they have, but the mutual fund expenses are perpetual. Uh, for all the time your money is invested, mutual funds keep charging that, and that is their primary earning.
In our next question, Dushyant asks if mutual funds are allowed to short sell. If yes, how can these funds be identified?
No, mutual funds are not allowed to do a naked short sale. Mutual funds are allowed to sell and buy at the same time, and that is why you find that they are only allowed to do some kind of hedging, but not a short sell. But like if they have a negative opinion on a company and they expect that the price will come down, they sell only to pocket the difference at a future date. That is not allowed for mutual fund. And there are funds which do this arbitrage trade, whereby they buy the stock and sell the future, and we have a lot of arbitrage funds. Even in the normal funds can do that. Funds are allowed to do the stock lending, but I don't think it has taken off very substantially. So mutual funds are not allowed to do the real short sale, what we understand.
Mr. Gupta asks if there are any options for senior citizens to earn 9% over a 2-year horizon.
Uh, no, there are no guaranteed means to earn 9%. Yes, when it comes to earning 9%, likely, I am hopeful that, or pretty close to that. Many of the, on a 3-year time frame, I understand that some of the FMPs will be able to deliver returns somewhat close to that. Even some of the income funds will be able to provide returns which is close to 9%. Likelihood of some of the monthly income plans, if you invest in the growth option, they should be able to deliver. But then there are no guarantees. Mutual funds are not supposed to, the kind of return that we have been used to from senior citizen savings scheme, what used to give us 9% annually every year, and without any upside, and definitely without any uncertainty. That kind of return is unlikely.
We now move to a question that pertains almost to the other end of the risk spectrum. Anuj asks why equities give better returns than other asset classes over the long term.
This requires a independent hangout session, but I would still like to explain it briefly. Uh, Two things, which to my understanding or what I have understood. One is that equity is nothing but trying to get, you become the owner of a company, and you become the beneficiary of a company. You are a part owner of the company, so you are entitled to the profits of the company, and stock price is a reflection of rising profit and rising earnings, rising income, rising sales. So if there's a good company which is growing its sales and growing its profits, uh, and this growing its profit and growing its sales is a function of uh, inflation. If these companies are able to, if a company has the pricing power, they will be able to increase their profits and increase their sales as inflation goes up. Whereas as fixed income, we have seen that on many occasions, whatever the high, the margin over and above inflation is not substantial. You are barely able to beat inflation with fixed income. So, and then there is another reason. Companies borrow only to maximize their return. So if a company is, if a company has some capital and it is selling some product, and it will borrow only if it is able to maximize its return, because they will incur the interest, and the cost of interest must be lower than the earnings that they will have. So in case of companies, uh, so that is why. Uh, so 2-3 things I would like to summarize: that companies' earnings and profit gets inflation adjusted as consumers pay higher price with rising prices. Companies borrow only if it is beneficial to them, which means the shareholders' return must be higher. Uh, and these two things primarily makes equity as a better option. And then superior companies are able to do something more than this. Superior companies are able to uh, enlarge their market, have a larger market share, create greater efficiency and maximize their profit. So they are able to achieve a greater scale and benefit from that. So these three things combined together actually creates more return for shareholders, and all these things translates into superior stock prices. But then it comes with a lot of risks. Many companies die in the process, many companies disappear, many companies don't change, become obsolete. There are companies which are unable, there are companies which become mismanaged. So you have to be careful about this. Ownership comes with all these attendant risks, and over and above, there are investors' risk. There are great companies, but investors buy it at such lofty prices that they never make money. So you have many risks which you have to deal with, and we keep talking about these issues in Money Hangout, that how to de-risk yourself from catching a market high. SIP we keep talking about so often. Likewise, choosing a good fund is basically means entrusting your money to a fund manager who will make sure that he's buying into those companies which are attractively priced and are also likely to do well in future. So these things. So in a nutshell, these are the primary reasons why equity does better than fixed income.
Our next question is a rather interesting one concerning diversification within families. Mayank says that he has 5 funds across large, mid, and small cap categories. Should his wife also invest in the same portfolio or in a different one?
If you have chosen carefully, and if that portfolio is very well diversified, and diversification meaning diversification across capitalization, diversification across style, diversification across asset classes based on your asset allocation, your understanding or your approach to asset allocation. If they are well chosen 3-4 funds, your wife should ideally replicate it, that portfolio, and nothing beyond that. I think having too many funds to track is not a great idea.
Next up, Mridu says that a lot of KYCs done by banks are not KYC compliant now. What should he do?
Uh, I really don't wonder that that will be the case. And in case of mutual fund, lot of banks where your KYC has become invalid, you have to go through the same. You have to go through the procedure of providing the 2 documents needed. That should not be very difficult. And yes, it has been a problem. The laws have been changed, the rules have been changing, and it has been creating a problem for investors. There is also a possibility that mutual funds, once we have the central KYC which kicks in, there is a small chance that mutual fund investors might also have to go through this process once again. But as of now, mutual funds don't have a problem. Your KYC done once is valid for investment across any mutual fund companies, and if the bank is demanding a re-KYC because it's not complete, you have to go through it again. That's the law of the land.
Ravi asks if his name on his mutual funds will be replaced by his son's name on his death, or whether his son will get a redemption value which he will have to reinvest.
Uh, of course, the second option is pretty straightforward. That will also naturally happen. But if his son is a nominee, or if he has only son and his son will be able to prove that he is the successor of his investments, his name will be stuck, and his investments, his son name will appear, can substitute his name on his death.
Next up, Rohan asks what the options for parking his emergency funds are.
Options for parking emergency fund depends on the scale of emergency and the kind of emergencies you are anticipating. I have always suggested that you should have 3-4 layers of your emergency depending on your own situations. If you have young kids or old parents living with you, then you should have something more, 10-20,000 rupee lying in your locker. It will earn no interest, but it will give you great comfort. Then you should have some money. Depending, once again, it is also a very subjective thing, and you should think little conservatively about it. Have a slightly higher margin of error here, that you should have 10-20,000 rupees lying in your bank account always, which can well be in a deposit which is linked to your savings bank account, which is accessible from an ATM. If you have health insurance and life insurance, then that need can come down substantially. And then depending on other serious emergencies which you anticipate and can likely materialize, you will be faced with such emergencies, then I think that scale of money, if you have old parents and they're unwell, then then you have to really understand the situation, that what is the likely amount of money which you might need at a very short notice, and that is the money which can well lie in a short-term debt fund or ultra short-term debt fund. And because that short-term debt fund can also be a long-term money lying there, but it is accessible anytime and without any uncertainty of decline in value.
In our next question, Saurabh asks if now is a good time to invest in debt funds since their value has come down recently.
Don't do that, because it's not a rally which has come down. In fact, everybody has been wrong. So as I keep suggesting, that the only way to not get disappointed by anticipating these situations is that align your investment, fixed income investment, debt fund investments with with a reasonable time frame of your investment. If this is your long-term money, then by all means be in a conservative debt fund. That will generate reasonable return. And at some point, I don't know, because the RBI governor has been very explicit in his statement that it is going to be a status quo, and everybody anticipates a rate cut. And I would rather say that don't go with the fund manager's expectation or with the RBI statement. Go with what is in your control. Money for few days, don't take any chances. Money for few weeks, let it lie in a fund which is insulated from this risk. And if you have long-term money, 2-3 years money, choose between income fund and short-term and fixed maturity plans, depending on your risk tolerance or depending on your liquidity needs. I think income funds will produce reasonable return, very much in line with what the current rate is, irrespective of ups and downs, irrespective of the upheavals in the market. Make sure that one thing which every investor should be careful about, and they should look at this particular fact, that a fund is not taking undue credit risk, because that is something which disappoints investors most. When your fund in particular takes a hit because some company has defaulted on the interest payment or has deferred the interest payment or repayment of principal, this is a situation which investors should avoid. And the way to avoid is come to Value Research online, check for the fund that you want to invest in, look at the allocation to lower rated bonds in the portfolio. You must do this check before you make that investment. And if you find that to be 15-20% and more, keep away from that. Let other investors make their money, make little more, because when you make little more when you earn little more in debt fund, it is not as much, but when you take a hit, it is substantial. Taking a 5%, 10% hit on your debt fund is very disappointing, and the upside of some of the risk that you assume is very low. So I feel that in debt fund, taking a significant credit risk, is the risk return trade-off is not in favor of an investor. They should keep away from that.
Thanks, Dhiren. We now move to our final question for this session. Jora asks if there is any mechanism to automatically inform him about a drop in performance of any of his funds?
There isn't an automatic process, but we will try and implement some alert methodologies based on the rating changes, a percentage decline or increase, but we would still be doing it in a manner and it will happen in recent future on Value Research online portfolio tracker, where you can set up your alerts around big changes in the value of your investment, as well as rating changes or some other changes, like some material changes like the change of fund manager and other such things, or change in mandate. So some significant changes in a fund's performance or your investment performance in general, we are creating an alert system which will be available to investors.
Thanks, Dhiren. Any final comments?
I would say that what we talked about, a must-do list for investors, that you should have your nominees clearly spelled out. You should have your bank details. You should have the email ID which is consistent with all your investments, and making sure that the beneficiaries of your investments are aware of all the investments that you have made. They sound very simple. They sound too basic, but make sure you do it, because I have come across a lot of investors who struggle with these issues because they did not think through it very well.
Thanks, Dhiren.
Thank you.
Thank you all for joining us. Join us next week for another hangout covering another essential aspect of mutual fund investing.